Are you in a band with a new album coming out? Are you an artist wanting more people to check out your work? Is there an event you want to promote? Do you own or run a company that sells a cool product or service? In Defense of Ska gets over 10,000 unique downloads each month. If you're interested in advertising on the podcast, we offer very reasonable rates and can help with the production of the ad. The ads are dynamic, meaning they will be placed on every episode for a given period of time. If you're interested, direct message us or email us at indefenseofska@gmail.com.
If there's one band that's defied every single 90s ska-punk stereotype, it is Chicago's Blue Meanies. They played a style of music closer to Mr. Bungle than Real Big Fish, and they were jaw-droppingly proficient musicians and kind of terrifying. Their two 90s indie LPs, Kiss Your Ass Goodbye and Full Throttle, are legendary albums from this era. So today we dig into Blue Meanies' full story with singer Billy Spunke and guitarist Sean Dolan, and go into the many crevices of the band's career, including their jump to major label MCA with Post-Wave. Strap in. This is a long and interesting episode.
Blue Meanies are such a good band, and for years, I was terrified of them. Like, the first time I ever saw them was at the Ska Against Racism tour in Las Vegas, and for like most of their set, I lingered out in the lobby.
Yeah, I remember seeing them live in San Francisco. I want to say they played Slims, but I'm not 100% sure. And I remember they had like a weird van. Do you remember that?
I don't.
Yeah, I feel like it was some kind of camper van thing. And I remember I was really into the band. They were amazing. And then after the set, I think because probably I was with Mike, I got to go meet them. I was so intimidated, like so particularly intimidated because they were such an intense live band, but they were just like, "Hey, how you doing? Nice to meet you."
Yeah, I can remember loading out from the Fireside Bowl, and Billy was holding the door open, and he just goes, "Hi, Adam." And I was like, one, it was the dude from Blue Meanies, so that was scary enough. But then I was like, how does he know my name?
So Sean is in the In Defense of Ska Discord. He posted a few potential stories that he was going to tell that he hasn't yet. So I'm going to throw one at the two of you guys.
Oh God!
And see what we hear.
Do we hit a buzzer or something? They're like,
just tell us what you remember.
Yeah. So it says here, Meanies invade Australia. Billy sparks riot and learns what Blink 182 thinks of you.
wow.
Which one do you want to start with? That was
John wrote that?
So yeah, they've got a Discord setup, Bill, where they invited me to tell some Blue Meanie stories. And I posted some potential topics, and I have not actually written up any of the stories yet. So
this is a good one.
Your sparking of a riot in Australia was the first one, and then learning what Tom DeLonge actually thought of the Blue Meanies, which you may or may not remember, but it was a very short and brief moment, which just made me laugh.
Well, I remember the riot, and without a doubt, one of the most embarrassing moments of my life, to be honest. I have a friend heard about the story. He was he's a Swiss artist, and he sent me a brick to remember the riot, but the brick was painted gold. And I think the symbolism was it was that riot which really put us on the map in Australia. MTV covered it and all that, but it was terrible. I got hit in the head with something. Most likely it was a water bottle, but a brick sounds better.
I actually saw the projectile strike you, so I remember what it was.
So before I think there was 4 bands on the show. It was in a town called, was it Sutherland, Australia?
I believe that's right. Yes.
Which is a notorious surf town, I believe. And there was 4 bands on the bill. We were third, directly before Frenzal Rhomb. It was definitely their show. People were there to see Frenzal Rhomb. And the 2 bands that played before us, they took it from the crowd. The crowd was throwing water bottles at them, and just, that was what they did. That was part of the show. That was how, the audience participated. And I just thought it was so ridiculous that the bands would just perform and just dodge projectiles the whole time. So I said something about it, which I don't even want to say what I said. Do you remember what I said, Sean?
I have a vague recollection. The exact words fail me, but it was basically you taunted them for being shithead losers.
Yeah, I think it was pathetic excuses for punk rock.
That's what it was. Pathetic excuses for punk rock, which caused more projectiles than ever to start coming our way.
I mean, garbage cans and
everything,
water bottles and shoes, and it was hard to play. I don't think we got through like 3 or 4 songs.
Yeah. So what I remember is I was to your left, slightly behind you, and Jim and John Paul, of course, kind of in front of me, but it was a big stage. And I was just kind of hanging in the back. I wasn't hiding behind John or Jim by any means, but I was far enough back that I could see stuff coming. That's the point. I could see stuff coming, so I could get out of the way. You guys that were right up front were not in that position to like be able to dodge something. But I remember we were finishing a song, and it was almost to the end of the note. I don't remember what song, but it was an orange juice bottle, and I watched it sail like a line drive and pow right into Bill's eye.
Yeah.
Blood. I mean, he just went down and just crumpled to the floor, and blood everywhere. This bottle actually kind of broke, and I remember watching it kind of spin. That's in my memory. The bottle spinning on the floor afterwards.
I've never heard that.
Yeah, we all that was it. We just got off stage,
and it was more than that. They escorted us off stage, and
security
around. Yeah, security took us to some back hallways, and were like trying to get us out of there. But before they could do that, the paramedics had to come and work on my face and see, if I was okay. So I remember, and then I remember they took us away.
We were legitimately worried that we were going to get our asses handed to us.
Yeah, we were scared. But that never happened. And then MTV covered it, and it was great. There's some great video footage of the paramedics working on my face. There's two Australian paramedics. My eyes swollen. There's blood, and speaking of J-Bot, who we were just chatting up, before we went live here, he wrote a version of the Star Spangled Banner called the Star Strangled Banner. This is way back in the Pave the World EP. It's like a bonus track, and there's video of myself getting worked on by the paramedics right after that incident. And the soundtrack is J-Bot's Star Strangled Banner. It's really eerie. It's super eerie. So I remember after that they took us away, and there was probably a big like Drowned in Your Sorrows party after that. But I remember getting up the next morning, and the question had arose is if they were going to send us back to America if the tour was over. But that didn't happen. We kept going. So I played the rest of the shows with basically a massive black eye, and had to worry. I was worried pretty much for my life because Australia is a rough place.
But yeah, I think the part we're skipping over the story too, though, these kids, if they stick around for the show, and Frenzal puts on a great show every night. I mean, they're just the tightest, most amazing pop punk band I've ever heard. But they put on a great show, and the kids kind of calmed down. But what I remember is afterwards they went to the train station and trashed the train station completely, and did tens of thousands of dollars of damage. So we inadvertently caused quite a bit of property damage and insurrection.
And I believe punk rock shows were forbidden after that in Sutherland, Australia.
I didn't know that. That's
wow.
That's a new fact to me, but yeah.
What did Tom DeLonge say about you guys?
Yeah, how does the Tom DeLonge part of this story work out?
Well, see that he had no idea. He's not connected to that riot story. It was just
okay.
We showed up, and they were actually on tour in Australia at the same time, and their sound guy was there, and I think his name was it Bigsy? I think that was his name, and he was just kind of hanging out with us. We were in Melbourne, and he showed up. I don't know how he heard we were around, but somebody he found us, and we were chatting with him, and he came to our show later that night, and all he said, and this kind of goes back to what Adam and I were talking about last night. But all he said, he went back and he told Tom DeLonge that we were there. And, these guys, same booking agent, whatever. Were I don't know how well we ever knew them, but it would have been, if I had been aware of like people that or are connected to, we maybe try to go see a show, hang out, get to meet them, whatever. But apparently, Bigsy asked Tom, "Do you want to go see the Blue Meanies?" And he goes, "Are they still scaring all the kids?" So that was his answer, was no. So apparently Tom DeLonge maybe not our best fan out there, but
it's kind of a compliment.
It is kind of.
Yeah, he's not wrong.
No, he's not. Yeah.
I like the idea of a young Tom DeLonge seeing Blue Meanies at some point and being terrified.
Yeah, that's kind of funny.
There were a couple of shows with Blink 182 in SoCal, I believe, and they were very sparsely attended. I mean, like literally like 20 people in some couple of bars way back when.
Did they open for the Meanies? Because I wasn't there.
No, obviously. They didn't. Well, okay. Probably. Everyone does. But on their way to fame.
Well, the list of bands that have opened for the Blue Meanies and are much more famous than us is pretty long.
Welcome, Matt, to fame.
That's right. Yeah.
So the Blue Meanies begins in 1989 in Carbondale. This is a Jay Vance or J-Bot. He starts this project initially.
He does. Yeah. This is Jay's project. Jay hunted me down to be in his band. At that time, I was getting ready to graduate college, and I was not interested in being in bands, and I was avoiding phone calls from Jay. He was leaving them on my answering machine, and then he finally cornered me at a party, and I couldn't say no. So that's how it started. And so then at that time, Sean wasn't in the band, but Sean and I were friends, and used to hang out at my house and party. And Sean was in a band, and I was in some earlier bands, and we all played at the same little crappy clubs in Carbondale, Illinois.
And your basement, you had a basement show thing going on. You had gigs in your basement every so often.
Yeah.
So Jay presents. He says, "You got to join my band. This is what it's going to be." How does he present the band concept?
Well, I don't remember exactly how we presented the concept, but I do remember the basement. We played in a little basement, and what happened in that basement. And Jay was like immediately, the influences we talked about were the Specials and Fishbone. Fishbone, I believe, had just played in Carbondale and really was for the people who were at that show, Fishbone really blew everyone's minds. It was like the Truth and Soul tour, and they were on top of their game at that point. So Fishbone was a big influence for Jay and for me. But the real, what people don't realize is Jay was a huge fan of like 70s funk. So bands like Tower of Power and Sly and the Family Stone were that was Jay's jam. Jay loved it. Of course, he was, he could slap the bass at that time and liked to show off. That's kind of how it started. It was like, just playing in the basement, and I think one of the first songs were It Doesn't Matter, the ska song, just a straight ahead two-tone ska song. So that came from Jay. And then in the early years, there were definitely a lot of more funky stuff that went over well with college kids in the bars.
So, Sean, you remember? Did you see the first show, or did you see just a really, really early shows?
So yeah, I don't think I saw maybe first show, but Dave Lund and I. So Dave was also in the Blue Meanies, one of the bass player after Jay quit. But that's fast forward. But for the moment, just know that Dave and I both grew up in Carbondale, and we had moved to Madison, Wisconsin, kind of on a lark. His mom was going to graduate school there, and we both wanted to move away from Carbondale because it's a tiny little town in the middle of nowhere. But why Madison? It just kind of happened. But anyway, we had come back for a friend's wedding, and it happened to be that weekend that Bill and Jay and the original Blue Meanies were playing a basement show. And I don't remember which basement it was. It's probably just one of those party houses on Beveridge Street or whatever. But that was the full on funky Blue Meanies, I don't know, almost Chili Peppers-esque kind of sound.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And so I remember standing up close and watching the original Blue Meanies with Kendall on the drums. And the keyboard player was named Seth. Yeah. Wow. Listen to my memory. And that even predates Tony and Moni and maybe Jim. Was Jim playing with you guys at that point?
No. Probably we had this metal guitar player named Chuck for a while. That was
Chuck.
And I don't think there was any horns. There was no horns at the time, or maybe there was some like.
No, I don't remember a horn. But yeah, it was all just kind of funky party music. And you were wearing that Fez hat.
Yeah, the Fez hat, and and I was just thinking, there was a song that Jay wrote for his He studied jazz in college, and he wrote a song for a thesis or something. It was called Too Much Shit. And it was this song that starts off just like this straight ahead jazz tune, and then would go into hardcore, and then we'd just go back and forth. And the jazz portions would get shorter, and the hardcore portions would get longer as the song progressed. And at the end, it's just Jay screaming too much shit over the hardcore thing. And everybody loved the song.
I loved it. I remember you guys playing that. I do remember that for sure. That song is very memorable.
Yeah, that was like, you'd be this jazz thing and people would be just like chilling after we play some Chili Pepper song. And then that jazz thing would happen. People would be just like chilling, and the hardcore thing would just literally terrify people. Like people would jump. And I think that was maybe the first time it was sort of interesting to be able to scare people, catch people off guard, set them up and catch them off guard, and then scare them. And I guess that's the theme of this interview right now.
You wanted more.
And I'm just realizing that right now. This is great.
How many ways can we scare the children?
Were you mostly playing kind of like college parties, or what were the kind of main kind of gigs?
Yeah, they were like, not so much like college parties, like frat parties. They'd be like, there was a really great underground music scene in Carbondale, Illinois, where like people who had basements put on cool shows. Sure. And lots of really cool underground garagey bands came out of it. Mm-hmm. So there's a famous house in Carbondale called the Lost Cross House. And the Lost Cross House was one of the scariest, dirtiest places that you could ever go. I remember being terrified going there, but everybody went there. And the Blue Meanies played there. I remember playing there. And the Lost Cross House is still having shows today. And, they started, I think they had they started in the mid-'80s. What are they up at? Like 40-year reunion.
Yeah.
And it's to the point now where the city allows them to put a stage in the street in front of the Lost Cross House, and they have like a festival thing. But at the time, it was just the cops hated it, and the neighbors hated it, and it was scary and terrifying, to be a punk at the Lost Cross House.
What were some of the bands that came out of this scene in this era?
Diet Christ.
Yeah.
Diet Christ would be, if there's ever a band you want to reference in the Carbondale era, it would be Diet Christ, who was led by Mikey Snott, who went on to be some sort of like computer developer and ended up on the cover of Forbes magazine or something.
Oh, wow.
But he still has these like long bleached out matted dreads that he had at that time. Still does today,
they had a drummer named Taz who looked like a guy who was a drummer named Taz. I mean, picture that, that's what I remember. They were scary to me. When I was a junior in high school or whenever they were popular around town, they scared the shit out of me. So I guess that goes both ways.
The Blue Meanies, I was reading that the name came from a friend named Stacy Faye.
Yeah, she was Stacy Faye. She went as Annabelle Lamb Faye. This cool, lanky goth girl, really wore like these glasses and dyed her hair crazy colors and had long bangs and was just kind of quiet and interesting and cool. But she just said, you should name your band this. And at that point there was no care in the world. We were just playing music just to do it. And there was no, what your name was didn't matter. Recording didn't matter. Going on tour didn't matter. None of that mattered. It was just for fun.
Was she a big Beatles fan? Or where did that name come from for her?
No, I think she took the name from psilocybin mushrooms. I think that's where she grabbed it from.
Oh, okay. I always assumed you guys were deliberately referencing the Beatles in your naming the band Blue Meanies.
Nah, not really. But they're scary too.
Sure.
It'd be fitting.
So when does the move to Chicago happen?
I graduate, and then we're waiting for Jim Cooley and Tony Imony and Seth and Jay to finish their last semester. So in the meantime, I worked at a WDQN in DuQuoin, Illinois. I worked at this family radio station. It was ridiculous. It's where I heard us go to war with, I guess it would be Iraq. With the Kuwait-Iraq thing, the shock and awe campaign. I was on the radio at that point. And then we all went up there. We had already arranged, somehow through friends of friends, we had connected with Chaz and moved to Chicago and practiced in my parents' basement. And the goal was, I think we were there for 30 days before we actually went out on our first national tour, which was booked by a guy named Aaron Noss, who was in a band called Hoopla in Carbondale. And I think Aaron went on. Last time I saw Aaron, I saw him outside of Gilman years and years ago, and I think he was working with puppets, maybe part of Bread and Puppet, maybe. But he booked a tour, and we went on this tour, I think maybe down to Texas or something from Chicago. And classic tour was all booked by Maximum Rock and Roll on payphones and, no internet, that kind of thing, way back in 89, 90, probably 90, 91, somewhere in there.
How did you know Chaz?
Jay knew Jimmy Flame. They went to high school together in Deerfield, Illinois. And then Jim somehow knew Chaz through the Chicago, music scene somehow. I think that was the connection. Somebody knew somebody that knew Chaz, and Chaz came in the first time, and it just worked out absolutely perfectly.
So when I talked to Chaz when I interviewed him for my book, he kind of described the Meanies progression as they were more of a party band in Carbondale. And then they moved to Chicago. I joined. And then that's when we got to be kind of a more scary, crazy band. Do you agree with that assessment, or do you want to dig in a little deeper on that?
Chaz had a nickname of Luther. And Luther, if you met Luther, he was maybe the origin of scaring children. He was one of the scariest early morning characters I've ever met in my life. And we all used to joke, hey, have you seen Luther today?
This is really his alternate personality. Yeah.
Yeah. And then maybe after breakfast, he would turn into Chaz again. It was really fun. But I would say that the Carbondale years were definitely more just fun. There was no road miles really on the band at all. But then when we would go on those tours, those tours were grueling, and just in vans, the breaking down all the time and sleeping in the van, sleeping on people's floors. And it's just the classic, touring for $50 and pizza, probably just made us angry and scary. I don't know. I don't know. Like, I'm trying to think of the first song. So we would come, and that Kiss Your Ass Goodbye live record would be done in Carbondale. Pave the World would come out, which wasn't really scary at all. I guess there's moments on that record. Pave the World can be seen as a scary, epic song.
Mhm.
I mean, really, it is.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, it's mellow, but it's scary. There's a song in there called Coat Hanger, kind of dug into abortion at the time, which had a scary theme and a scary ending. And then, of course, that what I was talking about, the Star Strangled Banners on the end of that, which is scary. And then there's this like weird thing, this Pop Goes the Weasel thing that kind of goes round and round and round and round. It was on the end of that album, just for fun, just to be, I guess. I think we were being funny, but I guess it was scary. I don't know.
The Pave the World, I like the recording, but I remember seeing you guys in like probably like 94, 95 or something. And I was a fan of all your stuff, but Pave the World live. And I feel like, if I remember serves correctly, I feel like you extended it, so it was kind of long.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was an experience. Just the way that song sounded and the vibe you gave it.
Yeah, I really, if there was ever a thing that I would like to try to do again, it would be to really record that song, to try to capture that live energy of the song.
Yeah. Because, I mean, you're right. It's mellow. It's not like that. It's not that intense, menacing quality of a lot of your other stuff. But it was like almost like, I think the thing that was like, when I saw that, I was like, wow, these guys are on another level. Just the mood you created with that song.
And then imagine Jay playing that bass with no eyebrows and a plastic suit, screaming Pave the World, and Tom DeLonge running for the door, terrified.
I have a weird memory attached to Pave the World. I was hanging out with, we'd played a show with Mary Tyler Morphine.
Oh
Oh,
yeah,
great.
yeah.
And we were staying with them, and they let's put on Pave the World. And they just had it on the record, and they just put it on. And I just remember them all dancing around, like kind of looking zoned out with their hands up in the air over their heads.
Oh my god.
So anytime I hear that song, that's the image that pops into my head. Them just all kind of a little bit drunk, like hands over their heads, like in like this religious rapture with their, rocking back and forth.
That seems like the right way to experience that song.
Yeah, I think so.
Still timely, that song. It's like still got lots of legs.
Who wrote this song? Was
Definitely Jay would come up with the initial structure. That that intro organ would have been one of Chaz's like brilliant, like the many Chaz brilliant moments. But that would be Chaz would come forward with that, and then the theme and the lyric part would be written by me.
Well, speak on that a little bit.
So when I was just, I think on one of the very first early tours, possibly out to the East Coast, it was a lot of our first times ever leaving our lives, and going out besides college or, our lives in Chicago, and going out and seeing really a lot of desolate, poor, rundown towns in America, and being just like, wow. And it's kind of eye-opening for all of us to see, what kind of shape most of America was in.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess just driving everywhere and always being on a highway, there's always construction. I think that's probably was the inspiration behind it. But, when I sang the song, I was trying to think about, the character Joe, who's, driving this steamroller. It was always about that. And then there's a part of that song, what do you call it? It's kind of there's a word for it in like Shakespeare or like Greek theater, where there's a new voice that comes in and speaks back to the main character. There's a part of that song. I wish I could even remember the song at this point, but I saw it as really like a theater piece, and my inspiration personally, being someone who doesn't really know how to sing, would be Tom Waits and Nick Cave. That's when I would like get into character for that song. That's what would be inspiring me. And the big chorus, the pave the world. So that's just following Jay's part that he wrote. And, just maybe at the beginning, it probably felt like, some people at a bar swinging beer steins and singing something, and then it just sort of morphed into that.
Let's talk a little bit about you as a front man. You just talked about thinking about Tom Waits and stuff for this as a character for this. Did you have inspiration and thoughts about how to approach being a front man as you guys were playing more and more?
Yeah. I think getting wild on stage sometimes, or being theatrical, or waving my arms around, was really just, I had to do what I could do as someone to look at, to hide the fact that I didn't really want people to pay attention to what I sounded like. Truth. It wasn't until later on, I don't think I ever was really happy with any vocal performance or really starting to have a command of vocals until the Post-Wave. Before that, it was just a lot of screaming and just pure emotion. And, on stage, I loved being on stage. I love performing. But I think a lot of, the antics, before Pave the World, throw me a cigarette, and, that was just part of the vibe and part of me trying to get people not to pay attention to my sound of my voice. I mean, it's serious. I was never really a great singer.
What changed from the previous recordings to the Post-Wave that made you feel more comfortable?
I started to listen to wise musicians like Sean, and took some lessons. I actually went and took lessons. I tried to calm down. I tried to listen to myself, and tried to focus on melody and being confident that I could possibly do it. I think if we would have been able to record a second record in that lineup after Post-Wave, I think I could have stretched my voice even further, just practicing and taking and getting instruction.
Yeah.
It would have been great to have that opportunity.
I think too, Bill. Your voice changed a lot with the amount of practice and time that we spent writing songs, because we woodshedded for, got to have be close to 2 years. It took us to, from the time we started writing songs until that record actually was finished. It was a long time, and all we did was practice. In between, we do some tours or do some shows or whatever. We were doing stuff, but we were just practicing all the time, like 5 days a week. We were down in Homewood at Blue Meanies HQ and writing songs and practicing and really trying to listen to each other more carefully than the band had ever done, I think.
And then, Sean, how many hours each practice would you practice for?
We treated it like a job, Adam. I mean, it was like, we really we clocked in. I mean, we weren't there at 8 in the morning or anything, but we would sort of clock in the early afternoon and go until, the early evening, and basically play, 6-8 hours a day. We'd break for food or beers or whatever the case may be. But it was pretty much we just treated it like a full-time job. Just clocking in, clocking out, write the songs.
Billy, when did the megaphone come into play?
Again, this is another way to disguise the fact that I couldn't sing. So that was just a trick. I think it probably pulled that from Tom Waits. Tom Waits, of course, famous for the megaphone. So it became a great way to do that. Also, sometimes I would like to use the megaphone to enter a new voice into a song. So sometimes if you listen, there's voices talking to each other in with the song. So my raw voice and then the megaphone might reply back. That was a thought at times, but I felt great with the megaphone. It was just, it was the same thing as, this is a little bit off topic, but the megaphone was a great way to something to hide behind. When we first started wearing suits, that was like something to hide behind. We became different people when we put on those suits. And then, and I would say that the other thing that most people didn't see is that we had a sound engineer who was really the eighth member of the band, Lance Reynolds. And, to this day, I won't play a show unless Lance is behind the board, because I know that he knows how to treat my voice, and I know he knows my weaknesses and my strengths, and he can work with me on stage. Without him, I wouldn't do it.
I read that you had used to rehearse in an abandoned grocery store.
I think that's before your time, Sean, right?
It is before my time, yes.
So this would be the Mike Pearson area. He was the guitar player, and this is when we were writing Full Throttle. So Chaz's father had somehow had access to an old grocery store, but you need to not think about, there's no shelving in it. It's just it used to be a grocery store, and now it's just an empty, dark, wet space. And it was great because we could drive our cars just right into the warehouse, and the garage door would open and close. And Flame and John Paul had these great classic big old cars, these like 4-door Oldsmobiles, and we just looked so cool pulling into the grocery store, and we'd park our cars in there, and then we had a little corner that we practiced in. That was all in Homewood, Illinois, where Chaz was from. It was cool. That's where songs like 4th of July was written there, and Send Help, Smash the Magnavox, that chapter of Scary.
What was the acoustics like in that building?
It was loud, just like we liked it. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because it was really loud, and there was a part of the band up until the Post-Wave, the last record, that we didn't exactly listen to each other. We talked over each other, we disagreed with each other, we just like brothers would do. But even in the songwriting process, sometimes we would just barrel through these songs, and everybody would just be throwing parts on top of it, and whether it clashed or not, it didn't matter. It was just this is your part. You're playing the horns, and you're just gonna just run right over the guitar or whatnot. It wasn't until the Post-Wave that we actually made a conscious decision to turn down and listen to each other and not step on each other's toes. That wasn't until then.
I see.
But the supermarket acoustics were perfect for not listening to anybody else in the band.
I can imagine a song like Ninth Ward being written in that environment, because it's like just total cacophony, like this wall of sound that hits you. And it's just, and then the horns are blaring, blah, 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 da, 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 da. And I can just hear that like echoing in this big boomy room, and you guys just being like, yeah, fuck all you,
Yeah, it was great. Another megaphone song. Yeah.
Would anyone ever come to practice at the grocery store besides the band?
Yeah, a lot of times, people would come and hang out for a second, cute girls, and they'd be there for like 5 minutes until their ears couldn't take it anymore, and they'd leave. No, there was nowhere to sit. There were no chairs. There was no couches. It was just literally an empty, it looked like a warehouse, but an empty old grocery store with nothing in it. There was a little area off to the side that had a bunch of old dental equipment, like really kind of macabre. So if you didn't know and you're here, we're playing this loud music, and then over there's like these weird chairs that look like bondage chairs and other weird equipment. The reason they were there is because Chaz's dad sold them, but it was definitely added to the vibe.
And then some guy in a weird mask comes out and starts grabbing the dental equipment and coming at you. Let's go back a little bit. You guys moved to Chicago. As I understand it, you guys were kind of connected more with the Chicago punk scene. You didn't really think of yourselves as a ska band, but it was kind of the ska bands from other parts of the Midwest started to connect with you, and that's kind of how you got the Ska Association or Ska label.
I don't even think we were connected with the Chicago punk scene at the time. We just really were completely on our own. We had copies of MRR, and that's how we booked our tours. And, we didn't know any difference to meet bands and play shows with bands. Really the first connection that really kind of made us think outside of just ourselves is MU330. It's playing with them and and sort of having the same same background. They're practicing in a basement. We're practicing in a basement. They've got some horns. We got some horns. We're trying to figure out how to go and travel around America. We're about the same age. That's the first time we really ever connected. It didn't have anything to do with the fact that they were a ska influenced band at all. It was just we had the same ideas. We wanted to do the same things, and it was just, let's see if we can make it to California. Let's see if we can make it to Manhattan. That was pretty much the idea.
And you played with MU330 and Skankin Pickle in the Outhouse in where's the Outhouse? Lawrence, Kansas.
Lawrence, yeah.
Oh, do you know about this place?
I don't. I've never been there. Adam, have you been there?
I feel like I probably have.
I know of it. I just have never been there. But yeah,
it's a legendary place. So you have to really put your minds into. You're touring. You have an address that's written on a piece of paper, and you have maybe a phone number that you have to stop at a payphone. You can't check your iPhone for your Google Maps or your MapQuest or anything, and you're in Kansas, which is the middle of nowhere, and then you're in Lawrence, and then you're following some strange directions that somebody jotted down from a payphone conversation, and you are leaving the city of Lawrence, and then you're riding down a dirt road, and on either side of your dirt road is like 8-foot tall corn. There's no buildings. It's just corn forever. And you begin to think to yourself, like, what have we got ourselves into? Is this real? Have we been duped? And then I forget how far it was out into the cornfield, a mile or so. And it's a little opening, and there's this tiny little single-story cinder block building, where the Flaming Lips played, and Fishbone played, and Fugazi played. And that is where we met MU330 and Skankin Pickle for the first time.
Yeah, Dan told me about that show, and he had an awareness. He said that when they played that show, he became aware of the idea that this thing called Ska-punk or whatever, that it was a very flexible genre, and it encompassed everything from Skankin Pickle to them to you guys. And he just kind of saw how it kind of put two and two together in his head about the scene that was kind of bumbling up that you guys were all a part of.
Yeah, it was definitely it was an origin for a lot of us. Skankin Pickle was definitely on. We respected them. They were coming from California, so he was sort of like, wow, there's a band from California here, and they were fun, but they were also a little bit scary at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
Jerry and Lars, these towering trombone players, were terrifying. And then what's the Mike, the name of the bass player at the time? He was
Mattingly,
Mr. Clean.
Mr. Clean.
Terrifying too, and they really pushed the boundaries of ska way before, bands like Blue Meanies or MU330 or Link 80 did. They were kind of far out there too. And also had a little bit of like, occasionally there'd be like a funk vibe that would pop up, and a punk vibe and a ska vibe. So we appreciated them for their just like willingness to break the rules. It was cool.
Yeah. So Jay quits before Kiss Your Ass Goodbye, but still records on it. Is that what happens?
Yeah. I think the album had been scheduled to record, and our run together came to an end on the West Coast, and we drove back to Chicago, and there were a few weeks in between. We drove to St. Louis to record it. We had a little tiny record deal with a small boutique label in St. Louis, and Jay, we actually flew Jay in to record, the basic tracks, and then flew him out. So he didn't even stay, I don't believe, for the vocals or the horns or any overdubs after that, because it was so awkward, and it wasn't good. But Jay was the songwriter. They were his songs, and we wanted him to play on it. But yeah, Jay was actually out of the band when that album was recorded.
What's the story with the cover image?
Yeah, who is that kid?
I grew up on the northwest side of Chicago. And across the street from me were the Mcnamaras. And the Mcnamaras, Johnny McNamara, who is the song Johnny Mortgage, which is on Kiss Your Ass Goodbye, is sort of written with Johnny McNamara in mind, but his son is the kid in that cover. He's a McNamara. Johnny would be the first one in our group of neighborhood kids to like take the leap into. He got married and got a really good job and had a kid. So that was his kid in there. He's still proud of it. He's got the poster hung up in his house, which is pretty cool.
What's the kid think of his image being on the cover?
I think he loved it. It was really hard to shoot it. He wasn't excited about wearing that hat, a suit and a hat, and we had to I think we had to feed him candy the whole time just to get him to stand still. But he did it. It was pretty good.
He's got to be in his early 30s now, right? I mean, at least.
Yeah, definitely, maybe even 40s.
Yeah.
I think he's full on married now. But he comes out to anytime the band plays in Chicago, he'll come out and see us play again. That was cool. That was some the back cover of that. Is supposed to be the kid blown up, and there's like some early Photoshop examples in there. The flame on that, the back cover looks pretty funny. At the time, that was pretty awesome, but the technology has changed so much.
So around this time that it's released, you're going to have to kind of put some of this together for me. It's my understanding that you moved to New Orleans.
Yeah, in mid-90s or something. This is after Kiss Your Ass Goodbye, before Full Throttle.
And so the band breaks up for a little while, or goes on hiatus? What's going on there?
Yeah, I think the band was done. I think it was sort of like it was just too hard just to keep going. You could tell we weren't, going to be, wasn't really happening on the, on the larger level. And I think Jimmy Cooley and Tony Iommi were kind of the first ones like, yeah, we can't keep doing this. We can't keep traveling around the country and doing this at this level. And which is understandable today. Of course I get it. At the time I was really pissed. I was like, I can't believe you're throwing in the towel. We're going to be huge stars. So I just picked up and Shay, who's been my partner now for 30 years or so. She and I just threw a dart at a map and ended up in New Orleans. And we were there for 2 years. And then at that time, the band sort of somehow came back together. Sean, how did we come? No, you weren't even part of that.
I wasn't. Well, I was living around the guys who ended up in your band
with Dave and Bob.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was tangentially related to that, but not directly.
I can't even remember who was really the cheerleader to get us all back together and to write and record again, and end up in the abandoned supermarket. But yeah, so I was in New Orleans for a couple of years. The song "The Devil Went Down the Ninth Ward" that's the ninth ward is New Orleans. Mm-hmm. So that was written about our landlord at the time.
Did you live in the ninth ward?
I did. I lived 1 year. The first year we went there, we lived in the quarter, and then we found a place. It was like $350 a month for this giant shotgun apartment on Burgundy Street in the ninth ward. Oh. Of course, this is all pre-Katrina. The ninth ward, which has now been renamed the Bywater, was much, much different then than it is today. But yeah, I lived there. It was a magical couple of years and also terrifying.
Why was it terrifying?
New Orleans is, a crime-ridden city. Was basically. I'm kind of spooked about the fact that the Mississippi collects all of our garbage and dumps it all into the, into the Gulf right there at New Orleans. So I can only imagine, the world famous shrimp we're eating out of there has just got to be truly gross, delicious, but gross. And it's just a hard place. We were broken into many times. All our friends were broken into. There was muggings and our car was stolen, and it's just it was a fun place to live. There was this wonderful art scene happening there, really cool art scene. It's still there today, but in the end it was just too much. is just, I don't know why anyone would want to live in that environment, to be honest.
What did you fill your time with while you were living in New Orleans?
I think we ended up, I didn't work. I think we ended up just jumping right into writing Full Throttle. So I think I was writing and just kind of decompressing from the prior chapter of Blue Meanies and starting to think ahead to the new chapter. Yeah, I think I was doing a lot of thinking about the band and how to get it back together and give it a go again.
I see. Have you heard the Bad Operation? That band? Have you heard of them?
Yeah, I love Bad Operation. I heard the famous Mike Park phone call.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we're with MU330 and possibly Alkaline Trio on that during that time, which I think is Mardi Gras, and I'm probably pretty sure they're all staying at my house when we lived in the quarter, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know who alerted you to that clip of the band?
Was it you? I don't know. I don't know who. I'd heard it before. I think it ended up somewhere on some other recording, maybe a comp or something. But
was it on Mail Order is Fun?
Yeah,
maybe so. Yeah, but I heard it. Someone had tagged us in something at some point.
Yeah.
He's kind of glossing over it, but he started trying to get the Meanies back together right away, and so we were still kind of winding down Weaker Youth Ensemble at the time, and Bill started calling our house. It was me, Dave, and Bob, and he started calling, trying to see were you guys interested in coming to play with the Meanies, and I was like, I thought about it a little bit. I never actually talked to Bill about it directly. But Bob and Dave were gung-ho for it. I was kind of like almost done with finishing my college degree. I was like 3 semesters from getting my BA. So I was like, kind of, I don't want to just go play in a band. I want to finish school. So that's how we ended up roping Dave and Bob in at that point, because Weaker Youth was kind of winding down. We kind of not doing what we wanted to do anymore as a band. And, those guys were just ready to get out on the road and go do it.
So just for real quick background, Weaker Youth Ensemble, what was that band's run?
So Weaker Youth, we got together in 1991. Mm-hmm. Just kind of on a lark. Dave and I had been playing in a couple of bands together since high school, and we just kind of alternative rock bands. Nothing really to write your mom home about. But we had met Bob Tronson playing in local bands, and he had a band called Bald Cat that he played drums for in Madison, and we were in a band called Barbecue Fantasy, and both those bands broke up, and we all got a house together. And I think Bob had just finished college. He's a couple years older than me, and Dave's a year older than me. And Dave and I were just kind of bumming around, working jobs and picking away at school. But we all just wanted to play ska. We were just kind of interested in it, and I think the Mr. Bungle record had come out. We were kind of influenced by that. Like, this is kind of cool. We could do something like that, but put our own spin on it. So that's kind of how that came together. It was just the 3 of us fucking around for a while, and then we got a singer, John Powell, who's this 6'4" dude, tall, lanky. And John was 10 years older than me, so he was like 30 at the time. I was 20, 21, somewhere around there. And John had this great knowledge of ska. He knew everything about traditional ska and two-tone ska. He was a huge Fishbone fan, like the rest of us were too. And he just kind of schooled us all. Shared a lot of music with us and really helped us understand the history of the music. I mean, we had all been exposed to it, of course, but like John really helped us all dig into it. And then we found a keyboard player and some horn players, and then we had a run between, I guess, 91 and 94, 95-ish when the Meanies broke up and finished Kiss Your Ass Goodbye. So Weaker Youth was winding down around the same time. We put one record out that we self-financed and self-released. We printed like 2,000 copies on CD and cassette. And nobody wanted to pursue the band full time. the keyboard player was a really good guy. Brian Belloc was his name. Brian, great musician, but he just was not made out for the road. And every time we took road trips, Brian was miserable, and that was I think that was a big factor in it. But
yeah,
yeah.
So 2 of the members of Weaker Youth Ensemble joined Blue Meanies as they were reforming, but you didn't join quite yet?
No, correct. They found Mike Pearson, and if I remember this right, it was John Paul Camp III, our saxophone player, had gone to music school with Mike at Northern Illinois University. And so Mike was a guitar student, and I think I don't know the exact back and forth about it, but I know at one point they just kind of settled on Mike. He was the guy, and great choice. I mean, the guy could play anything and was brilliant musician. And I think he just added a whole new dimension to that band and made them sound completely different.
Yeah.
Very, very aggressive, very in your face, inventive. Technique was just out of this world.
So tell me a little bit from your point of view, reforming the band. So obviously you don't have every member is ready to rejoin. You get a couple members from Weaker Youth Ensemble. Are you're still in New Orleans and like, as you're putting it together?
I am. I'm still in New Orleans. I don't think I'm putting it together. I don't. There's a character that will pop up named Jeff Stepp, and Jeff really became sort of a manager, I guess. He kind of helped us. We used to go down. He lived in Charleston, Illinois, which is in the middle of Illinois, and we used to go down there and practice. And he helped us out, and he helped us sell merchandise and get art, and really became sort of a manager, trial by fire manager. It definitely hadn't managed bands beforehand, but we really liked him and trusted him, and he was really a crucial member of the band. And I think he was the one that sort of said, we've got an opportunity here. We can put the pieces back together with the guys from Weaker Youth, who we were all friends with. And then John bringing Mike into the fold was great. And I don't remember the actual day that Mike sat down. Like, we asked him to learn some songs, and then Mike would show up and play the songs. But Mike was phenomenal. I mean, he was next level approach to guitar playing, just way far out there. And he was really cool. And I think the other part of it, I think we could practice at his parents' house. So that was a big bonus. We practiced there too. And then he brought on Hash Brown, and Hash Brown was a longtime roadie. So it just and they were also near Homewood, kind of where Chaz was. So there's a lot of connections happening here with Carbondale and Madison and the south side of Chicago where Chaz was from, that kind of just kind of kept it together without, hiring on a hired gun or something. I don't remember exactly, but I'm going to guess that if Sean had been available at the time, and maybe you were, Sean, but I mean, I love Sean, and Sean, without a doubt, to me is still, I think I connect more with Sean than anyone in the band today. I'm sure at that time I would have been to me, it's always about who you're with and not so much, how great of a guitar player or horn player you are. It's really, to me, I'm who am I going to spend all my time with in the van? And I mean, I could travel around the country with Sean in a canoe and be happy. So there's probably part of that. Yeah.
I don't remember ever talking to you or to Jeff about joining. I remember Dave asking me, saying he had talked to you, or maybe he had talked to Jeff. I don't know, but he had talked to one of you guys, and the question was I interested? And I was really interested, but I also wanted to get my degree. I wanted to finish school, and I was really torn over it. I regretted it the moment I said no, but I also don't regret it because things wouldn't have worked out the same way. So it's one of those moments where you have a fork in the road and you have to go left or right. And I went left and those guys went right, and we were apart for a couple of years there, but we came back together, so it worked out. But yeah, I mean, Full Throttle never would have happened, and that's a wonderful, amazing testament to what that band was at the time. And Mike was a big part of that, and I just always felt honored to be a part of that whole lineage of the band. But I can't imagine a Blue Meanies world where the songs from Full Throttle don't exist. That's like impossible for me to imagine.
So you were writing a lot of the Full Throttle record in New Orleans. So you get back together. How soon does Full Throttle become a reality? And in terms of you guys are starting to record it and everything like that.
So, wow, there's a couple stories in this timeline that I think they're touring. We get right back on the road and we continue touring and writing. This is the time when I think Adam Katz, who was would become Jeff Stepp, would give the manager role, an official entertainment manager, to Adam Katz, who was in LA, and sort of our team began to assemble in Los Angeles based on Adam Katz and Rick Bondi at Tahoe. So there was touring still going on. There was writing happening. There began to have lots of record label interest. People were starting to sniff around, probably because of the success that was beginning to build around the third wave.
Yeah.
So there's stuff happening. I think that's part of the reason we decided to give it a go, because there was stuff happening that was positive, that seemed like, okay, maybe we could take another step. And then there were people like Bob and Mike and Dave who were willing to take that next step, who were willing to say, all right, I'm willing to jump in a van and go on the road. So I think a lot of that was happening. So Full Throttle would be put out by Thick. Of course, then there's Zach Einstein at Thick, and he's interested in the band and he wants to work. So things started to like fall into place a little bit.
Yeah.
That would just kind of take us up a notch. And I don't know if I answered your question, but that's kind of what was happening. And then I remember packing up the car and with Shay and driving back to Chicago and beginning to start again, to start over and do it again. But while I was in New Orleans, my part of the band has never been the music. I'm not writing chords. I'm just writing words. So, there's definitely a book with lots of words in there. And I imagine a lot of it was a little bit, there's probably some angry stuff in there, some hopeful stuff, angry because the band didn't make it, after, we broke up and now we're trying to get together again. The world was kind of in a shambles, if I remember correctly, what was happening then. And I didn't know what I was doing. Why am I in New Orleans? Now I'm moving back to Chicago and all these things. A lot of like, what if? So there's a lot of, we talk about the anger a little bit because we saw a lot of these bands come and play with us who we just thought weren't, they weren't doing like musical acrobatics like we were doing. And we thought everybody should do that. And we thought we should have been recognized and paid for being inventive. And it seemed like all the bands that were just weren't being inventive were becoming successful, and that was part of the anger too.
Sure, yeah.
So when we were done writing, we ended up going back. We ended up going to Madison, where we were practicing, and we went to Smart Studios in Madison. So this is where Bob and Dave and Sean are from. So there's the connection again, and we recorded Full Throttle there.
So in this period, you said you got Rick Bondi became your booking agent.
Yeah, probably even before them. He's probably maybe even connected to us back when I think maybe that Cornfield show is how we got introduced to Rick.
Yeah, did Mike introduce you to him? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I've heard that Rick's agency, known as Tahoe Agency, became known as the Ska-ho Agency because you dubbed them so.
I don't know if it was me, but if it's funny, I'll take it. Yeah, we always thought of ska as funny. It's kind of a funny thing to poke fun at. We loved all our people that we played with, but it's a funny genre. I don't know if I actually said that, but sure, why not?
That's what Rick told me. So yeah, he said it came from you.
Is he mad at me?
No, he was glad for it. No, yeah. So for people don't know, Rick Bondi was in that period of time he booked like all the ska bands basically.
Yeah, Sublime. I think it's connected to No Doubt and Less Than Jake.
Real Big Fish. Yeah, Toasters, Scotalites.
Goldfinger, wasn't it, with the Tahoe band?
Yeah, Goldfinger at one point became a Skaho agency band.
Skaho.
Yeah.
And that's the connection to Universal and MCA eventually. It's like MCA was like, and Universal was listening to Rick because, the third wave was blowing up and Rick seemed to be the reason for it.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, let's talk more about Full Throttle though. So that does sound like an angrier record to me than Kiss Your Ass Goodbye.
Oh God, yeah.
It's also the techniques, the technicality on that record, particularly the horns, are amazing. And it's not just a studio thing too, because you guys released a live record like a year later, and the horns and the whole band pretty much sounds as good as the studio. Like I think of say a song like Smash the Magnavox, where you have that like that whole part with the horns.
Yeah.
I mean, you weren't really hearing ska bands engage in that kind of horn lines with that kind of precision.
And that really was a guitar line.
Yeah.
Yeah. That Mike Pearson wrote that the horns had to learn. And just to jump ahead just a little bit, when Sean came about, the big thing was, can you play the riff? Can you play Smash the Magnavox?
That was the audition.
And what's the answer, Bill?
Absolutely.
Eventually I could play it, but oh my God, that was the hardest piece of music I've ever had to learn. Literally, I to this day, if I pick up my guitar, I will struggle to get it down without practicing it over and over and over, because it is so fast and so technical. I ended up playing it with two fingers. That's how I figured out I could do it. I should use all four of my fingers to play it. I'm sure Mike does, but I ended up learning to do it with two fingers. So go figure.
And it's not only the intro, that notey part, but it's getting from that into the verse, into the chords. I mean, lightning fast. I mean,
yeah.
Lord.
Yeah.
So Full Throttle, we're going to Smart Studios. And of course, this is, Nirvana has recorded there and Smashing Pumpkins have recorded there. And those are all the people that are at the time are, they're on top of the charts. They are what alternative is all about. And so there was a long history of being at Smart Studios and recording there, which is thrilling to us. And at the same time, being there was an honor, and being able to perform at a higher level, in those walls was important.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. Plus we were just angry and wanted to go faster. There's a little bit of, we weren't, as far as, drugs go, there's many rumors about, what, we may have done or not done. And sure, we smoked a lot of pot. But at that time, there was a lot of, what are the little trucker speed? Ephedrine?
Mm-hmm.
Epinephrine.
Yeah. I think it was called ephedrine at the time.
Ephedrine, yeah, trucker pills.
Yeah. Yeah, we used to take, like, before we'd play, we'd like shake the bottle, and it was like Pavlov's dog, and Bob would take 3 ephedrines, and we'd all take ephedrines, and then so we could play as fast as the record was. But, or actually, not even as fast as the record was, because the record hadn't been recorded yet. But it was, it was like a light speed, trucker speed. And we used to do that all the time, and that's how we really kept it going all the time. And I think we learned that pace of those songs, and that's what ended up coming out when we recorded them.
Wow.
So that's how the horns are that fast and that tight, or raises spun.
No.
I think there's actually maybe a little, there was a little, if I remember right, kind of, John Paul was a little annoyed with how fast everything was laid down. He actually told me that story. He thought everything was too fast, and he wanted to slow it down, and he thought the band had been rehearsed to be at the right tempo in John's mind. And when he got there, he was like, everything was way too fast, and he was pissed. That's what he told me.
He's probably right. He's probably right. But I don't think I'm not so sure John, but maybe Jimmy. But they were just incredible horn players.
Yeah.
They had the technique, and from school, and they were just really good at what they did.
And you wouldn't even know it, but I mean, because unless you have the encyclopedic knowledge, I mean, I think Jim, after the Kiss Your Ass Goodbye era, Jim was writing most of the horn lines, right? And he has this knowledge of jazz that is deep and broad, and he'd be quoting stuff from all kinds of obscure jazz players. I'm sure like half of those Blue Meanies, horn lines are Jim riffing on something he had in his head, and then he and John would take it and work it and come up with something that was their own. But that's what their basis was, just this just knowledge of jazz that goes beyond what any of us normal people would have.
Yeah,
sure. They were great. From my perspective, looking like to my left and to my right and behind me, the musicianship and craftsmanship and the speed of the people on that stage or in that studio at the time of Full Throttle was incredible.
Yeah.
Like just, look over and see these people performing so quickly, and then performing like on stage too, being able to, try to look good too while you're doing it. They were just great.
I remember every time I saw you guys in that era that I each progressively, I mean, and I saw you guys a lot, but progressively the band was getting better and better and faster and tighter. And it was mind blowing to watch you guys go from Kiss Your Ass Goodbye, which is pretty aggressive and fast music, to this like just different plane of musical reality. And Bill's right. I mean, everybody in the band just developed into these just amazing musicians. I mean, Dave Lund can play bass at an amazing level when he puts his mind to it. And so can Bob Tronson play the drums. I mean, all of these guys were they were off the charts good. And of course, Chaz was in his own musical universe, just adding all kinds of texture and layer. I mean, it was just amazing to watch these guys.
And then on top of that, when we could do it right, 3-part harmonies.
Yeah.
At the same time.
Yeah.
So ridiculous.
Or lots of screaming, as the case may be.
Screaming, yeah, 3-part screaming.
Maybe in the same bar.
So when Full Throttle came out, you guys hit the road for 5 consecutive months. Is that true?
I would say that we probably were gone most of the year, or a couple of years, just gone. But yeah, that would seem about right. That would seem, it's just what we did. I think we committed to going and doing it and trying to crack something out there and get people to listen was what we were trying to do. So yeah, I would say 5 months without stopping. Sure. Yeah. And then go, and then kept maybe a short break and keep on going.
So during this time, you were tapped to be a band in the film Clubland.
Okay, yes, we were in the film Clubland. How do you know about that?
I do my research. Let's hear about it.
So I'm trying to remember some names. So Glenn Ballard, I believe, was a successful producer at the time, and maybe he did Alanis Morissette.
Yes.
Alanis Morissette. And so we kind of knew him from there, and then he was going to make this movie called Clubland. Somehow, some way, through some Los Angeles connection, we were tapped to be a band playing on stage.
Was it John Rosner? Was it Rosner who connected?
It might have been Rosner. I'm not sure, but I do know that Lori Petty was in the movie. She was like the star of the movie, and went straight to VHS.
So were you playing Blue Meanies, or you so what were you playing?
It was the Infidelity song, which is on Full Throttle.
Wow.
We were playing live, and there's like a scene in the club, and then we're on stage, and for a second, whatever. I think maybe Lori Petty or somebody at the end of the section of the movie says something negative about the bass player. And the bass player, there's an intro that Dave has to play that's maybe not that easy. It's definitely not he's not a bad bass player. But I think in the movie they say something like, "Oh, that bass player sucked."
Yeah, it's really like 30-second notes on a fretless bass that David's doing this descending pattern. So that's irony to the maximum.
So from what I read, there's a choreographer for the crowd, and in terms of how they are acting during your performance.
Yeah, they're a pit choreographer.
Pit choreographer. Okay.
I'm remembering this, and there was like somebody with a green mohawk, like pitting around, and they were showing him. Maybe the pit mohawk guy was like he had some experience, and everybody else didn't. I don't know. Yeah, it was a full-on movie. We were there for hours and hours and hours to film 30 seconds of the movie.
Pit choreographer. That's a job title. Yeah. At
that time too, we became friends with the folks at Troma Films.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with Troma Films?
Yeah. They're like the Toxic Avenger people.
Yeah, Toxic Avenger and Tromeo and Juliet. And we wrote the title track to the movie Sucker right around the same, maybe just a little bit after this. Because I think, are you involved in this now, Sean?
That was the first song I wrote with the Blue Meanies.
Yes. Perfect. Yeah. So, and it's about what happens if you're a vampire and you suck the blood of someone who has AIDS.
So,
yep, that was what that was.
So, did this movie get released?
Sucker. Oh yeah, straight to VHS. It was right in the at Blockbuster. It was next to Clubland. It was like, what's these?
Back in the day, you could go to Blockbuster, and on a busy day, you could get a copy of Sucker, Clubland, or Ishtar.
Yeah.
Oh, ouch!
And that's how we hooked Sean into the whole thing. I actually love the song we wrote for Sucker. I just thought it was cool. It had like a great.
It's a cool song. It's surf rock.
It's like surf rock, and it had a great organ intro. Kind of Pave the World-esque. Yeah, it was neat.
Is it anywhere? Is it on anything besides the movie?
No, I think it's been banned. Yeah, it's been banned by the government.
It's on the Pigs EP. Actually, that's where it was officially released.
Oh, okay.
We did play it live a few times.
We played it live a lot, actually.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
So you also did a video for Smash the Magnavox.
We didn't do it. Bob Tronson did it.
Oh, okay.
Bob Tronson is some sort of filmmaker now. That's how he makes his living. And he put together that whole video. He assembled an entire crew, like a massive crew, and not many people know this, but it's shot on 35 millimeter film.
Wow.
Yeah, not video at all.
Have you seen the video, Adam?
Oh yeah, many times.
He didn't run it by you? He just did it and said, "Here you go."
Well, I mean, I was there, I was in it, but yeah, we trusted him. It was cool. It was fun to do. I thought it was a cool video.
It still looks great too by like today's standards.
Bob's going to hate me for saying this, but I'm going to tell you a little secret.
Oh yeah,
sure.
So Bob also wrote this neat little short film called Range Life. It's really hard to find, and it was loosely based on the Blue Meanies, and he somehow got me to be in the film as the leader of a band, which played a Blue Meanie song. But it's it's also another thing where he got a whole crew together and shot it on 35 millimeter film. And it's this cool little short film about a band hoping to make it. And they're playing a show and they're waiting for an A&R guy to come, and the A&R guy doesn't show up, and all the drama that happens before that. But it's cool. He got like a Pavement. The Pavement has a song called Range Life, and he got Pavement to say that he could use that song in the final credits of it. It's neat. It's a neat film.
Nice.
Hard to find. I don't know. Maybe Bob doesn't want anyone to see it, but I thought it was cool. But the band in it, the band is called Jehovah's Shit List.
Yeah.
That's a great name.
Yeah. And I'm the singer of Jehovah's Shit List. And Mary Tyler Morphine, the girl from Mary Tyler Morphine, by the way, is the bass player in that band.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Gene McClure.
Gene McClure.
So Sean joins the band. Sean, you joined the band right at the onset of Ska Against Racism?
Well, yeah, slightly before that. So Bill could probably tell more of this story if you wanted to, but Mike, I think you guys were on tour with MU330, if I'm not mistaken, when Mike finally decided he'd had enough. And you guys finished out a tour. You came home, and Dave and Bob were still living in Madison. And I had been finished with school for a while. I was just working some schmo job. I had a job, terrible job, collecting money for the student loan program. It was, really just soul crushing job. So I was more than willing to entertain offers to join the Blue Meanies at that point. Dave and Bob got back from tour, and I saw these guys all the time. Every time they were home from tour, we were hanging out and just shooting the shit and whatever. So I was still in touch with everybody on a regular basis. But they took me out for beers, and we went to the Plaza in Madison, and they sat me down and said, "Hey, Mike quit the band," and I said, "Oh, really?" And they said, "Do you want to join?" And I'm like, "Well, fuck yeah." And they're like, "Wait, are you sure? Because this is not like for the faint of heart." They're like, this is like, this is sleeping on floors. This is, making, $10 a day if you're lucky, like this is hard. This is a hard life. And are you sure you want to do it? And I'm like, fuck yeah, I want to do it. Like, are you kidding me? Like, I've been waiting for the last, 3 years to get back at this. So yeah. Because I hadn't been doing any shit other than holed up in my little efficiency apartment, recording these bizarre little guitar tracks that were, just me trying to not lose track of the fact that I like to write music. And so I had all this just pent up energy that was ready to go for a band. So I was just gung ho. You couldn't have got me into that faster. Mm. And that was, I think, like, I want to say that was around like Thanksgiving of 1997, somewhere around there. So the Ska Against Racism tour, I think, was starting to get put together. Mike Park was planning that out with Rick Bondi, I'm sure, at that point. And I think that was kind of on the radar. It's like, that's something we're going to do, after the first of the year. So I just started woodshedding with Dave and Bob and just started trying to learn as much Blue Meanies music as I could. I mean, I knew it all. I'd never played any of it, but I had an understanding of it all. So it helped that I had played with those guys in bands before. But that was tough, man. That was a tough process to learn all those songs. I don't even know, Bill, did you guys even audition anybody else?
No.
No? Okay, there you go.
But all I can think about here is that your first tour, Ska Against Racism?
That was my first tour. So we did like, we did like, I don't know, maybe a half a dozen shows before that. I don't know. We played this show in Carbondale. It was a total disaster because I got lost. I couldn't hear things, and so I was just completely like, what am I doing here? And then there was a show in Northern at the Calb where I think you ended up laying on the floor singing a Pink Floyd song, if I'm not mistaken. And that was with the Broadways. The Broadways were still together. They showed up at that. And then we hit the road and we headed west and we played a show in like Denver and a couple other stops on the way. And then we joined the Ska Against Racism tour in Seattle. So my perspective on the Blue Meanies starts there at this giant venue in Seattle, Washington. And these guys have been telling me this is we're going to be playing shitty little clubs and doing this and that. And that's my first tour. Is I show up and there's, a couple thousand people there.
Lucky bastard.
So, I know, right? I skipped over some of the less savory parts and got right to the good stuff. So, but I just showed up at the right time, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Sean, in your time in the band, were the Blue Meanies staying at people's houses, or were they able to get hotel rooms and whatnot?
We were still doing that quite a bit.
Okay.
We were doing some of that, but it was mostly friends at that point because these guys had built up a network of people that they knew everywhere. A ship in every port, if you will.
Yeah.
So there were lots of people to stay with that we knew, or these guys knew. That became, I would of course become friends with too. But yeah, but we did start. I think this was seen as a big, graduation step for the band. We would get one room at the Motel 6 every night, so that was like a big deal.
So with Ska Against Racism, I've read things you've said, Billy, and Mike Park has an opinion about the tour being maybe not quite what he had hoped it would be, and you had kind of a similar feeling about it.
Yeah, I said something in the Chicago Reader, I think, when it came through Chicago about, I forget who was all on that tour. I think Blue Meanies at a time really held the flag as far as the purpose of the tour. Bob, our drummer, is schooled in African American studies, and the tour really meant a lot to him. And he would get up and he would speak for a few minutes before the headlining band to make a point, and that was important to us. And I think when we were on stage, we'd always try to say something, or the set was written in a certain way to send a message across, that had to do with the tour. But from the sidelines during the rest of the show, there was rarely, if ever, a mention of why we were there. And it just seemed like another reason for us all to be together and play music and have fun, which is fine and all. But I remember at one point it being disappointing as far as trying to change some ideas and some minds. But, Mike had done a good job about, having an information table or two out front so people could visit and talk about, the state of equality at the time. And but I remember at that point, I think I said something that was, this is a really fun tour, but it's really not different than any other tour. And we had hoped that there would be more substance.
What kind of things would you guys say on stage addressing the, anti-racism?
I don't. It's been so long. I can't even remember what we would say, but I do remember that when Bob had a short speech where he would talk about what was happening, and it's been such a long time. I'd have a hard time even trying to say what he was trying to say, but he, Bob's a smart guy, and he can be eloquent at times, especially when he's saying something he knows something about. So I'm sure it was to the point, and it was good at what it was.
I seem to remember that he was kind of, and I think we talked about this in the van quite a bit, and kind of agreed that this was the message for him to send, which was kind of just staying involved in your community and not just being a bystander, and actually, trying to do something about what you saw on a day-to-day basis. Because Bob came from that background as a community organizer. He had that job after college for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So that was important. It was important to him to get that message out, and all of us.
Interesting. Yeah. I think in that same article, you mentioned a incident in Phoenix where you were talking about Martin Luther King's.
Oh God. Yes.
Oh yeah.
I think it was maybe I don't know if it was Martin Luther King's birthday or the day he was assassinated.
Yeah. Assassination. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was, what is that? April 8th, April 4th, somewhere in there. I remember saying something about it, and the crowd reaction was like we were booed for saying something about it. It was shocking to me to be on that tour and say something. And it wasn't like I wasn't going off on a long speech or anything about it. I think I was just recognizing the day. And I remember that show. It was an outdoor show, and it was just being like ugly at the time. And I believe Arizona's reputation right around then might not have been so stellar either. Yeah. It just triggered some bad memories for me.
Yeah, the kids wanted to hear Less Than Jake. That was the bottom line. So
yeah, so Less Than Jake were on an upward trajectory during this tour, right?
Oh yeah,
the tour was all about them. It was all about them for sure, and not in a bad way. But I mean, they had their MTV exposure, and
yeah,
and they were just becoming a real force to be reckoned with, and the kids were just going nuts for it.
Plea for Peace happens another year or two later, and you guys do that. I know Mike feels a little bit better about Plea for Peace. When I talked to Chaz, he felt like Plea for Peace was a better version, or felt more in line with what it was supposed to be. What's your feelings about? What are your guys' feelings about the Plea for Peace tour compared to the Ska Against Racism tour experience?
That's kind of a tough one because I think from my perspective, I think Mike's goal with that, if I'm not mistaken, was really just to raise the money to fund the foundation, right? I mean, I think and whatever he could do to use those resources down the road. That's kind of what I remember the most about it, to be honest with you. I don't know that it was more or less impact at the day of the show. I know that it was probably an easier message for people to digest. I mean, who's against peace, right? But I don't remember it being quite the same, specific focus on a thing other than this idea that Mike wanted to, build up a foundation.
The thing that I thought was really cool about Plea for Peace as opposed to Ska Against Racism is that it was all Asian Man Records bands.
Right.
And I remember there was a canned food drive. So there was at least that. But then I also remember we're all starving anyways. And so I remember Mike eating some of the chili. Just going like, what? I'm going to take this one can. I'm hungry.
I'm hungry.
And then the other thing I remember is I was stage managing that tour for $9 a day, I think, or $7 a day. And so I was loading everybody's gear into the venue every day. And the worst thing to have to carry was Dave's bass head. It was so heavy. Like unreasonably heavy. Like I don't know, like one of you is going to have to ask Dave, like, did he have bricks in the case?
You might be mistaking this for Chaz's Leslie.
Oh, maybe it was that. Maybe that's why it was so heavy.
It was a giant Leslie speaker that Chaz ended up sawing in half to make it easier for us to load in and out. True. Yeah, he really did.
True. Yeah.
The other thing I remember about that tour is you guys weren't allowed to play the Gilman show.
Oh yeah.
Because you were signed to a major at that point.
We were signed to a major at that point?
Yeah, that was we did that tour in between finishing the Post-Wave and the Post-Wave actually being released.
Interesting.
And
yeah.
Bitchy ended up playing
instead
of us. And I went down to Santa Barbara to see my then girlfriend who's now my wife. So I was not at that show.
That sucked.
Yeah, we lasted one more day on that tour, and then we were all so burnt that we dropped off for the last couple dates.
Yeah, Plea for Peace happened multiple years, so I think that the intent behind Plea for Peace was changing year to year, in terms of what it was being fundraised for and what kind of awareness was happening. I know, like later in the mid 2000s, there was one that was specifically about getting people to vote. So anyways, there was, the Plea for Peace, I don't think had one specific thing in mind.
I got to hand it to Mike Park, from the early years and even until today, he still continues to just beat down that door, and just to talk about, equality and racism and, fairness with everybody. And he still continues to do that, for decades.
Yeah.
And as successful or unsuccessful as some of those tours or some of the records or some of his ideas that he's had, he's stuck to his guns and said it all these years. And nothing but kudos to Mike Park for just continuing to try to change minds.
So this was probably before Ska Against Racism, but you guys you opened for Real Big Fish and Goldfinger on tour?
Yeah.
Okay, so this was before that, right? Before Sean?
You want to talk about scaring kids again here?
Yes, let's talk about what was that like for the audience?
It was terrifying. Yeah. Terrifying for the audience. For us, it was like, oh, wow, we get to go on tour with these bands that are on MTV and there'll be lots of people there, and we'll open up, and it might be like half of a house at the time, or usually when we play, it'd be filled because they'd sell out every single show. And we would get 10 people at every show that would just be like, whoa, you just changed my life and my perspective. And I didn't know that a band could do that. And then, 90% of the people just came there to like have a good time. Nothing wrong with that. That's what entertainment is. But that's what it was like with Goldfinger and Real Big Fish. They were just like, it's pop music, and people like pop music. And yeah, I don't even know I don't know how we got on that tour or what our role was just.
I mean, that's a Rick Bondi thing right there, for sure. He booked both those bands, so.
I'd imagine after 30 minutes of us that when Real Big Fish took the stage, people were like, thank God. Life isn't so bad, and it was probably great for them. We probably really contributed to their merchandise sales.
It just drove people out to the lobby, right?
We did have a great time with them. I remember having so many great moments with both of those bands. But, there was always a time for us, riding to the next show or after a show, when you're on stage and you're looking down at, 1,000 terrified kids looking up at you, and then you have to go to the next place. Like, how can we reach more people, or should we? And always the answer for us was, let's just be even more.
Yeah.
Let's be faster. Let's be more angry. And that's just kind of the way we kept going. Thinking about it, we probably needed like George Harrison or something like in the band with us to help mellow us out a little bit.
So you got a little weirder and a little scarier as you progressed through that tour?
We watched every band we ever played with move on to, major or nominal success. Mm-hmm. And trying to write great music and interesting music and experimental music and music with substance and breaking down walls and barriers. And it doesn't work when you're like paying the bills. So it just made us angrier.
Yeah.
Basically. Yeah. When Post-Wave came about, we had to do a full refresh. We had to be like, forget it all. Let's just start over and let's just turn it down and start again.
So Post-Wave. Okay. So Rick Bondi, we already kind of mentioned this. Rick Bondi, he got a job at MCA, and they all respected him for all his work he had done in getting ska bands bigger and working with ska bands kind of early before it kind of took off. So he said, "Blue Meanies, obviously,
you're next." Yeah.
So, and
not just the ska bands, but Blink 182 was a Rick phenomenon, and he was on top of them way before anybody else, and they had blown up huge, and that was probably that and Sublime. Those two bands probably were what really got Rick at MCA.
And he also had Goldfinger and Real Big Fish too. So
yeah, right.
But I think to your point, like Sublime, when he had Sublime, they were not popular. So he was early on them, and same with Blink 182. So,
right.
So I'm guessing that MCA just said whatever you want to do, Rick, because they probably would not have signed you otherwise.
That seems like that's what we saw. They trusted Rick before his reputation.
Mm-hmm.
He had a track record.
Yeah, it wouldn't have happened otherwise. I have no compunction saying that because Rick just decided, go for it. I think that was his mentality about a lot of stuff. As well as I know him, I think that was the thing that I remember about him is like, just put it out there and do it. And we were a risk. There's no doubt about it. We were a risk to put on a major label, but he believed in us. And he believed that we could do what a major label would want, which is to sell records, right? And, we thought it was a big challenge. I mean, I think me coming in at that point in time, these guys were already talking about like trying to change up the sound a little bit. And maybe that had been some friction with Mike too. I don't know. But, I was open to the idea of like, well, let's try to write some more listener friendly music and see how that works out. And I think just having that attitude, everybody in the band was there, and we all kind of were ready to do that and see if we could make it work. So Rick was the one who convinced Gary Ashley, the A&R head of A&R there, and Jay Boberg, the president of MCA, to take a leap on it.
Tell me a little bit about the deal. I mean, I've read your statement about. I think it was the statement that Billy wrote, but then I also read that you wrote it with him, Sean, about getting
Sean wrote it.
Sean wrote it. Okay, but it was your name on it.
Yeah, I wrote it.
Listen, Sean wrote it, but it was supposed to just be an email to the band.
What?
We didn't send it to MCA.
No, we didn't. No, it was. I think what was happening, Bill, was you and Zach had gotten that delivery of records from the guy at MCA who, rather than throw them away, sent them to you. And we were going to re-release it on Thick, and you guys were going through that process of tearing out all the artwork and replacing it with Thick branded stuff, and doing all that. And I was sitting in Santa Barbara at a terrible temp job, and I think you sent me an email and said, "Can you write a press release?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." And I sat down to write it, and I was just pissed off. I was just like, "This fucking sucks. Why am I writing this press release now?" So I just got snotty about it, and I wrote it as a joke. I meant like that was supposed to be like an inside joke because I couldn't come up with something that was like, "Yay, we're putting out our record on Thick now instead of MCA." I was just kind of bitter. So that's the tone of that open letter, quote unquote. And we sent it around, and it was circulated among the band. And I think some people in the band were like, I don't think this should actually go out in the world. And Bill and Zach, I think, just saw it and just ran with it, and it forwarded it on to other people. Am I wrong about that? You guys were sending it off to different people.
So yeah, Sean sent it. Sean has always been great at like sending like ridiculous emails that seem like legal copy, and so that was part of the joke. Sean was. Were you now Sherman Xavier at the time?
Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's supposed to be an internal joke with the band. It's like an email that was copied with the band, and so I'm working in the Thick offices. I shared it with Zach Einstein. Zach Einstein saw the potential of it and shared it to the Velvet Rope, which was like sort of like thread, like industry thread in LA, some bullshit. And they ran with it. And then when that got posted, I remember telling Zach, "No, that's not for the public." And it came down for a second. And the lady from the Velvet Rope called me and was really grilling me to ask if we had written that or not or something, and I was just like, it was really like it was an intense conversation. Anyway, it got out there, and the rest is history. But the original intent of that letter was just supposed to be between us, and it was just supposed to be an internal joke, and it just went from there.
Did you really get $500,000?
The original deal, I think, was $350. The 7-year deal was like, I don't know, $7 million or something like that. And of course, we never got to the second record. But yeah, I mean, really, I gotta hand it to MCA. Like we got paid, as Sean was saying earlier. We went down to Chaz's house and we wrote music all day and drank beer and played GoldenEye. It was awesome. It was a dream come true. And we bought an RV, and we bought new gear, and we bought recording gear, and we were finally, after, I don't know, 10 plus years, it was happening. This is everything that we had ever hoped for. And of course that didn't, and we did get to write songs for a long time and work with some great songwriters and producers and record the record, demo it and record it. And it came out and all the things. It was awesome.
So Rick left the MCA. Is that what happened? Or was there anything else that happened?
No, I'm not exactly totally sure. I think Rick he left MCA, or he was going to go travel for a while. And
he didn't like living in LA, for sure. Yeah.
And there was, when I've said this before, but, for any bands out there, I don't even know if record deals even exist anymore as the way they did then. But, if you get a record deal or anything you're ever doing, you have to have someone there for you that it's your cheerleader that is going to come to work every day, and they're going to work on the Blue Meanies. They're going to like, we can make this happen.
Yeah.
When Rick left, that was it. There was no one telling the MCA intern or the MCA executive to like work on Blue Meanies. So I think we just got pushed to the side so they could focus on Shaggy. I think Shaggy was a big thing at the point.
That was it. Yeah, it wasn't me was breaking as a huge hit right around the same time that we put out the Post-Wave. I think maybe a couple weeks apart.
Yeah,
those records came out, and if you're a large record label with lots of resources, and you have the Blue Meanies over here with these weird little pop songs that we were writing, and you have over here Shaggy with mainstream pop. What are you going to focus on?
Shaggy.
If you're, yeah. Right.
Totally. Anyway, I'm working on a record right now with Shaggy. We're both in the same spot. Yeah.
So the album was released, and then they didn't push it. It didn't do what they wanted, and so what happened? They
did push it at the beginning. It was
yeah.
We would go to shows, and there'd be like poster displays and record execs would come out, and record stores would be there. It was good. It was really good. We thought we were doing a great job, and we thought right out of the gate it was doing well, and it was like the alternative radio charts. We were like in the top 20, and it seemed great. And then it was, and then the next great thing that happened was we were going to go on a sold out national tour with Flogging Molly. We were on cloud 9. We went to LA. We played maybe, I don't know, a couple shows at the Whiskey or the Trocadero or something, and then went down further to Southern California and played another show or so. And they were all like huge sold out shows with Flogging Molly. We were on cloud 9, but the only thing that was missing is nobody from MCA was at those shows. Kind of weird.
Huh.
And I swear to you, the moment we crossed over into the state of Arizona, we got the call from Adam Katz and said they had dropped us. So, you got to put yourself in our shoes. Sean and I are like in the van, like we just got dropped. And now we're just getting out on how many weeks national tour with Flogging Molly, who was just turning huge. All the shows were great. And we knew deep inside that when this tour was over, even if we made it through the tour, that it was done.
Well, Jim had already decided he was going to quit too. Jimmy Flame had told us at the start of that tour, he said, "Guys, I think I'm done. I think this is my last hurrah." And that was another like just deflation of the balloon. Like, what are we going to do? This key member of the band had been there for most of the life of it, was about to walk away, and it's such an important part too.
Yeah,
it's gone.
So they just gave you the masters?
Man, I don't know how this works out. Sometimes when I tell the story, I don't know what's going on. What happened? I'm waiting for a lawyer to show up at my door, but basically, so we just got dropped and nobody cared anymore. And I don't have the masters. I don't think any of us has the tape. They probably got chucked.
We made that part up. That was a fallacy. We didn't get all we got. We got a bunch of boxes of CDs. That's what we got back.
We did get we got like 10,000 CDs showed up at Thick Records.
I bet the masters are probably still at Studio 4 in Conshohocken, Pennsylvania, where we recorded the record, which I think Phil Nicola has since sold the studio to somebody else. But yeah, that's probably where they are. They're probably in the vault down there.
But Thick reissued it.
Really, the story is true. The palette of CDs came, and interns disassembled them and put new art into the back. Yeah, you can see the art is the exact same. It's just the label is different. It's one said MCA and one said Thick. If you open the CD up, the CD itself and the main booklet still says MCA.
So there was no contract like authorizing them to do this?
No way.
So. Well, I don't think anybody cared. Now you also have to remember that you have to think about the state of the music industry at that time. We were possibly the last band to sign, what would be considered a regular deal at the time. Right after that, the 360 deal came into play and digital, came out. So the entire industry at that time failed and had to rewrite itself, and I don't even know how that ended up unfolding, but that's what was happening at that very time.
Okay, so they had a bigger fish to fry, basically.
Yeah, they just didn't care.
We don't know. Yeah, they didn't care. If they cared, they would have sued us. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe
they were done with us. We were in the dustbin as far as they were concerned.
They were like, "Is there any chance that one of these songs could be a huge hit someday?" And they're like, "Nah."
So because you had these boxes of CDs, you had Thick sell them. Is that why?
So the band ended. Zach asked me to go to work for him, which was work for me. I was like, "This is awesome. I work for a record label." And we just continued. I went to work, and he pushed those CDs out, through his distribution channels.
I see.
And there was no band playing any shows.
But you had all these CDs. All you had to do was put a new label on them.
Yeah, I have some in my garage too. If you want any.
I throw those up online. I'm sure there's people out there who want them.
Nah.
But still in all, I bet, I'm not just tooting my own horn here, but I bet still in all, the Post-Wave probably sold better than the other records just because it was more widely available for the first time. I mean, it was actually, first of all, Universal Distribution put it out there. So it was in record stores around the country. And then Zach had a national distribution deal for Thick. So, I mean, it got back out there again. And now it's out there. I don't even know who. I think Zach has put it up on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever. And, it's not like we make any money off of that, but it's still out there for people to enjoy if they want to hear it.
So you've done a few Riot Fest reunions over the years.
Yes.
I'm curious about, my question about that is, it seems like you get good billing and good support behind you. Is there somebody at Riot Fest that's a big Blue Meanies fan? What's going on there?
Yeah, Mike Petrosyan, who is the brains behind Riot Fest, was a longtime fan.
Okay.
And that's basically he's made a great reputation of trying to get bands to get together and play again at his events, and we're one of them. So basically, that's how it happened.
We did the second Riot Fest in 2006, and that was at the Congress, right, Bill?
Yes, second.
I want to say, yeah. And that was Naked Ray Gun was the other kind of get that he got back together for that, and so that was I think that was our second show back after we had broken up the first time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because it's like Riot Fest does put together bands and stuff, but it doesn't always feel like it's an important band to them per se. It's just, this is going to be good for their audience. But in the case of Blue Meanies, it's an important band for the people behind Riot Fest.
Yeah, Mike really wanted to see it happen. And it was great for him because we're all spread around the country, and he made it work for us where we could all get to Chicago ahead of time and rehearse ahead of time and then be able to play the shows. If you think about it, us getting together and playing the music that we wrote, it's not easy, so there has to be some time for us to be together to be able to practice.
Yeah. So how long would you rehearse for these Riot Fest shows?
I think we put the sound, the set list together months ahead of time. And personally for me, I had at the time I had a small venue here where I live, and I would just play a CD on the PA and just sing along to it for months ahead of time just to get ready.
Yeah,
I think Sean, Dave, and Bob, they were all in Madison or Chicago, and they would get together and they would play a little bit. But the whole band would come together 3 days before the performance, and then just try to practice. But it was important that everybody did their homework ahead of time. Not only be able to play the songs, but be able to have the endurance and agility to do it.
Yeah, that's the harder part as you get older, and as you're not doing that on a regular basis. The stamina that it takes to play songs at 190 beats a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Pumping your arms that way, or if you're a drummer, especially, for Bob, that's a physical feat, when you're in your early 50s. So
Yeah.
that's tough.
Thank you so much for listening to In Defense of Ska. If you've enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe to the podcast wherever you normally stream or download episodes. If you haven't already, grab a copy of my book, In Defense of Ska, available at clashbooks.com. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. It's at In Defense of Ska. And please consider joining our Patreon at patreon.com/indefenseofska. You will get monthly bonus episodes, extended interviews and commentary per episode, and access to the In Defense of Ska Discord. In Defense of Ska would not be possible without the great team that tirelessly works on it every week. So you should go check out their other projects as well. Co-host Adam Davis has an amazing band called Omnigone. Give them a follow on Instagram and Twitter. It's simply at Omnigone. And our editor, Chris Reeves, has a phenomenal record label and podcast called Ska-punk International. For more information, go to skapunkinternational.com. And if you've ever enjoyed one of the highly specific In Defense of Ska memes floating around the interwebs, it was likely the work of The Bands I Like Only Charge $18. Find them on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And on that note, we leave you by saying, Ska now more than ever.
Hey, this is Adam. The show's over, but you're still listening. That probably means that this show, you enjoy listening to it as much as we enjoy recording it. So if you want to help support, for only $5, you can join our Patreon. Right now, you'll get exclusive behind-the-scenes commentary for each episode. You'll get monthly bonus episodes of Aaron and I talking about topics that don't fit into the usual topics we discuss on the show. And you'll get access to our In Defense of Ska community Discord. Who knows, we'll probably add some other stuff down the road. And if you've already signed up for our Patreon, we thank you. Thanks so much. We hope you'll tune in again next week. Until then, Ska now.